Hey, welcome back to Tea Time and a Story. So as of recording this, I have not uploaded anything to my channel in I believe over a month. And although I understand that this channel is basically nothing right now, it has, I believe, 3 subscribers, it's important to me that I try and upload on at least a somewhat regular basis, because if this is something that I'm going to commit to, then I need to commit to it. The past month, I will admit, my mental illness had been acting up, and I found it very hard to have motivation to do anything that was productive when I was not at school or at work. So I found it very hard to make myself do these videos. But as of right now, the world is all under quarantine due to the coronavirus, and my work is shut down and my school's transferred online. So I've kind of been on a nice little vacation, and I feel very rejuvenated. And at last, I can record this video that I have been nagging myself to record for a very long time now. So in my first Best Friends Book Club video, I talked about Heroes or Pawns by J.J. Sherwood, who is a local Cincinnati author that I happen to kind of know. This month, or for February, my friends and we read Hounded by Kevin Hearne. I will start out by saying that this will probably be a short video, because the book itself is not long. It's about 200 something pages. I want to say maybe like 280. And the plot is rather simple, so there's not a lot for me to dive into without spoiling anything. And I would prefer not to spoil anything for anyone who would like to pick up this book after watching the video. So I'm going to do my best to talk about it and make this entertaining without spoiling anything. So Hounded is very much along the lines of the Percy Jackson books, if you ever read those. It takes place in modern day Arizona. Our main character is Atticus. And he is a druid, which means he takes power from the earth, and he's very connected with nature, and that allows him to do feats of magic and inhuman strength, and he has immortality, but that comes into play with something different. But it's about him being this being and living in modern day Arizona and tackling the problems that come with knowing about the magical realm while also trying to live a normal life. The humor is very much on par with the Rick Riordan books, and the fact that you do talk about all the different Parthenons and how Atticus himself interacts with them. It reads like a Rick Riordan novel, but meant for an adult audience, and that isn't to say that's not a bad thing. That's actually, in my opinion, a pretty great thing, because I find that I don't care how old I am, I still really like Rick Riordan novels, because I like the humor and I like the characters and I like the blend of contemporary and mythology. So I think Kevin Hearne did a good job of that for a more mature audience. That isn't to say this book is like explicit or highly mature. It's just not meant for preteens like Percy Jackson is. So we follow Atticus, and he has been around since the Iron Age, and I'm not exactly sure when that is, even though I am a history minor, but I do know it predates Christianity. So he's very old, and like I've mentioned, he's very in tune with the earth, and through this he is able to craft like these kind of like magical potions, and he turns them into teas, and basically he has a tea that gives him immortality, and he calls it immortality, which is pretty great in my opinion. I'm always up for a good pun. But that is why he's such an old soul living in such a modern setting. But anyway, we follow Atticus, and he is running what he calls an occult bookshop. And I believe it's Phoenix, Arizona. It's a college town in Arizona. And it's kind of like those shops you have in the mall where they sell like tarot cards and crystals and kombucha tea. And then in the back they have bongs. It's kind of like one of those places, minus the bongs. He sells tarot cards and books about astrology and all of those kinds of beliefs. But he also has like a little tea shop in the back. And honestly, that sounds really, really nice and cozy in my opinion. I may not have those like pagan beliefs, but the tea shop sounds really, really nice. Often while I was reading this book, I found myself wishing I could cuddle up with a good fantasy book and drink some of these teas that he's talking about. That was probably my favorite part of this book. Was thinking about reading books, and I don't know what that says about me other than I'm a big nerd. So the main conflict is about 2,000 years ago, prior to where we start off. Atticus was in a war and he stole a sword from a very powerful Celtic god. And for the past 2,000 years, this god has been hounding him down and trying to get the sword back. Hence the name Hounded. Well, by the time you get to the first chapter, this old god has finally found Atticus, found out he's been hiding out in Arizona in the middle of nowhere. And so you have Atticus trying to protect himself, protect this mythological weapon, and trying to live like a semi-normal life so that he doesn't tip off people who don't know about the magical realm to the magical realm, because he has to keep that under wraps. So it's really funny to see the juxtaposition of like old Celtic gods and then, you know, just modern society trying to coexist, but often clashing. And that's basically the plot without really giving anything away, is that Atticus is trying to protect the sword, protect himself, and protect basically the world for what would happen if this god that's chasing him down got this sword. This book is obviously the setup for something much larger. There are more books after this book, Hounded. I don't know how many, but this book is meant to be an introduction to the setting, to the lore, to the characters. So the fact that the plot isn't super complex or deep, that's okay, because this is meant to just introduce us to what is going on. And I'm alright with that. I thought this was a really quick, fun read. I read this right after reading Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which was a chonker of a book. So this was like a nice little breather after that. So what I did like about this book, I mentioned before, I like the idea of just mythology and modern society in the same setting. I like the fact that he runs a tea shop. That's great. But the other thing I want to touch on is that Atticus has a dog that can talk. Well, at least he can talk with the dog, and the dog can talk with him because he's a druid, and that's just what druids do. But he has this dog, and his name's Oberon, and this is the best character in the book. I love this dog, and I would die for this dog. And I'm not exaggerating. I would die for Oberon. He's the best character. Like, there's this part towards the beginning where Atticus has to give Oberon a bath and is like, hey, to make this less miserable for you, I will tell you all about the time I spent riding with the Genghis Khan. And the dog, Oberon, when he's done, gets this like obsession with Genghis Khan, and he wants to become the modern day like dog version of Genghis Khan. So he keeps asking Atticus like, I want dinner, but what would Genghis Khan want for dinner? Or, I'm thirsty, I could go for some coffee. Did Genghis Khan like coffee? And Atticus is like, no, he was more of a tea guy. And so the dog's like, well, give me tea then, because I will become Dog Genghis Khan, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. And I love that dog. He's the best part of the whole book, as I've said, and I will say 1,000 times. Best part, I love the dog. I would read a whole series just about the dog, and I would be fine with that. God bless Oberon. Things I didn't like, there's only really one thing, and it's just a personal tidbit for me. I find that Atticus gets laid too easily, and that might just be me, but I am an asexual woman, so I find it hard to believe that anyone can get laid easily, let alone want that, but that's just because I'm me. But there are, I believe, 3 separate times where Atticus gets boned by 3 separate women, all of whom are goddesses, and I just find that very hard to believe, because this book takes place in the span of like less than a week, and I don't think that's possible. It doesn't seem plausible, but it is fiction, but I don't know. That isn't to say this book is erotic. Not at all. It skips right over it, and I'm fine with that. Overall, I give Hounded about a 3.5 out of 5 stars, and that's not to say it wasn't a great book. That's just to say I thought it was a really fun, quick read. I didn't like hunker down and like just turn page after page like I do with a book that really engrosses me. No, this was a fun, quick read for me, and I like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. So that's why I give it a 3.5 stars instead of like a 4 or 5 stars. It's because it was just a quick, fun, like, let loose thing for me. I do plan on reading the rest of the books because I'd like to see where it goes from there, and I want to see more of the dog because I will die for the dog. So that was this month's, or at least last month's, February's Best Friend Book Club, which I understand that is the world's worst name, but I don't know what else to call it. As for the next book we're reading, I actually kind of don't really know what it is. The friend who suggested Hounded was like, well, I tagged this friend to choose the book, and he never really settled on one book. He just said, I'm thinking something by Cassandra Clare, so I started reading one of her books. But due to quarantine, things have happened, and I don't know if I'm going to get to finish it before quarantine ends because I don't have it with me now. But regardless, we'll see if there is a next installment in this series. If not, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, as a little end note here, so I am in my final semester of college, and I am doing like a senior thesis, dissertation project, whatever the hell you want to call it. And I've made a like typed out physical blog that I'm running in conjunction with this one. And it's about the importance of storytelling, and I'm taking like highlights from books and games and stuff and talking about them and why I think they're important and their impact on society. So if you're interested, I'll link that down below. If you're not interested, I don't care. It's just a project I'm doing and thought maybe people might be interested. It's under the same name, Tea Time and a Story. And that is it for this video. I will see you guys next time.